Streaming live on the Jays from the Couch YouTube channel. You're enjoying the views from the On Fek Circle, as presented by JFtC.com and the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. This little misadventure is here at our new time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesdays. And this is not the only programming available on the YouTube channel or as it's simulcast on the Facebook page. And if you're one of those Twitter people at Jays from Couch, there is, of course, the Mothercast podcast, Jays from the Couch radio podcast that is hosted by our founder and senior editor, Sean Doyle. Rotating cast of other Jays from the Couchers. We've had guests like Shai Davidi and Keegan Matheson and Jordan Romano. We bring in people from out of town to give them a chance to prove that their team is better than the Jays. We shoot them down, but we give them a chance. We're fair. And then, of course, on Thursdays, also at a new time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And I should mention that the podcast has moved from Sundays to Mondays for during the season. It's also on at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And on Thursday, Karen Suter hosts Sunny Side of the Dome, the only Blue Jays broadcast host that can actually fuse sheer fandom with great baseball knowledge, great baseball perspective, and just ties the package together. Nobody puts on a show like Karen Suter, so make sure you tune in Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, the Feckless Wonder, Steve Fek. Welcome to episode 11 of the On Fek Circle. We're going to introduce a new segment in a little bit called This Tweak in Baseball. We'll take a look at things primarily from a Blue Jays perspective, but it might be a grander scale over the course of the weeks of the season that need to be tweaked, that need to change, and they should probably change now. Now, I don't think anybody's really going to listen to me when I say this, but you may, and maybe you can help build the pressure, and we can change the world. We can change the face of Major League Baseball together. And maybe we might sneak in a little bit of history if I can actually not lose my mind over the trades that happened today. And it's not so much the players that got traded, it's the general managers or presidents or whatever titles they're holding that were involved and that are in competition with the Toronto Blue Jays. The more minor deal, I guess, would be that the Braves, Alex Anthopoulos, remember him? Remember when we used to have a GM that actually made trades? He pulled off a deal for Orlando Arcia for the Brewers, who basically has been misplaced through free agent signings and trades. He went to the Braves, and the Brewers picked up Patrick Weibel, who I would imagine is going to see some innings, not maybe leverage innings or key innings, but the Brewers, maybe even more than the Rays, mix and match pitching, really more out of desperation. The Rays do it because they have the talent and they develop their pitchers to do it. The Brewers just kind of wing it every year, and every year they seem to be in the playoffs. They also picked up Chad Sabatka. He might get some major league innings at some point. I don't think it'll be anytime soon, but it's the trade that you'll probably hear about when you're watching the game, which starts at 8:05 Eastern Time tonight. The Jays in Texas, trying to avoid a COVID outbreak and try to avoid the horrible masses of unmasked people in Globe Life Park there in Texas. Brian Cashman of the Yankees picked up, wait for it, Rougned Odor. That's right, left-handed bat for Yankee Stadium. Blue Jay nemesis is now in the division with more chances to haunt them. Again, I'm not saying Rougned Odor should have been brought in, to the Blue Jays. There's just no fit there. I mean, if Marcus Semien really isn't a fit, in my opinion, I don't see where Rougned Odor's a fit. And honestly, if Atkins had actually traded for Rougned Odor, given the history between him and the Rangers and the Blue Jays, I would literally shut up for 2 years and not say anything critical about Russ Atkins because just the sheer audacity and chutzpah that's required for a GM to bring a Ruth Netodor to Toronto, that earns him 2 years of silence and no criticism. But my issue is, who's making deals? Brian Cashman, main division rival, New York Yankees. Alex Anthopoulos, who got it done in Toronto, not being afraid to make deals and realizing the talent he had in the minors in order to acquire the pieces he needs for a major league team. Earlier today, I saw Dave Dombrowski, and I was talking to Sean Doyle behind the scenes before we came live. Every time Dave Dombrowski is on a live video or a live feed, they should play the music for Jaws, because it's like, dum, dum, I'm going to come get your player. Dum, dum, dum. He's just laying in the weeds. And in Tampa Bay, Eric Leander, he has everybody on speed dial. And I'm sure on every phone device, whatever it is, he's got people on speed dial. He's ready to strike when you need to strike. Heimblum is not going to be shy in Boston. Even people with Toronto connections. What's his name? Perry Manassian and with the Angels. He was here as a director of pro scouting. He went up, followed Alex, worked under him with the Braves. Now he's the GM of the Angels. He hasn't been shy to make moves in the offseason. He won't be shy going forward. And of course, there's Ben Cherington. Now, mind you, I live in Pittsburgh. I stream at you live. I'm the American voice of the Toronto Blue Jays, if you will. The Pirates are going to stink. They're just going to stink. And the fact that the guy that they're building everything around, Ke'Bryan Hayes, got hurt in the second game of this year, tells you what the fortunes of this year's team is. But Ben Cherington, he did it in Boston. He was a major player building the Blue Jays farm system. He's going to do it in Pittsburgh, and he's not shy. If there's anybody of any value, he's going to trade him. Kevin Newman somehow now is some hot commodity because he hit 714 in spring training. See ya. Bye. Adam Frazier, bye. Whoever is hot that can get moved, see ya. He's going to turn Todd Frazier into something. I mean, Frazier's going to have to play for a while now, which is great because I love Todd Frazier. He may be my favorite Major League Baseball player, but he's going to turn Todd Frazier into something that's going to turn into a very, very big piece down the road. But here in Toronto, what do we hear? Paging Mr. Ross Atkins. Mr. Ross Atkins, please pick up a courtesy phone just to let us know that you're trying. Ross has got to do something. It has been a great start to the season. We're 3-1. We'll probably be 4-1 tonight because my man, Tanner Roark, takes the hill against a rebuilding Rangers team. And so things are looking really, really good. And the pitchers have come through. This is 4 games. We talked about it on the podcast this week. Those bullpen arms are going to get tired real soon if pitchers are only going 3, 4, and 5 innings. In fact, that's one of the reasons that we pushed back the starting time of our shows from used to be 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. We didn't want you to miss the beginning of the game because with the Ross Atkins directed pitching strategies, you miss 15 minutes, you might miss your starter. He might already be out of the game because, the computer might spit out something, that like the rationale between Marcus Semien being a leadoff hitter rather than Kevin Biggio. It's going to spit something out saying, well, Hyun-Jin Ryu is the best pitcher on our staff, but because the wind's blowing out of the southwest at 8 miles an hour, he can only throw 36 pitches tonight. It's going to happen at some point. Something stupid's going to happen again. And I'm only hoping that Roark is on the team long enough to have a meltdown and call old Ross out on all this. But I really want to talk more about our man, Charlie Montoyo, the Pinocchio of Major League managers. He's not just a marionette, and whoever the guy is that designed him, Yeah, I keep saying Topo Gijo, but that's the guy from the Ed Sullivan Show thing. But he was a happy guy. He's going along with the strings. Ross, what? You want me to say what? Oh, our reports say it's good to have Marcus Semien play and lead off and play second base. Okay, what? That Shoemaker's pitching really well in the playoff game that we really need to win, but the reports say he can only throw so many pitches. Okay. I'm a happy boy. I have a major league manager job. He's cutting some of those strings. And I say that because watching games in spring training, and I know it was easy to do, especially for you folks, and the majority of Blue Jay fans, live, north of the 49th parallel, living in Canada. Rogers didn't do anybody any favors this spring as far as getting them excited about seeing the team play in spring training. I got to see them more here in the States. I had to, record them, or I had to wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning to watch the MLB Network. But Charlie was really kind of asserting himself even before the official picking up of his option for 2022 got announced. He was kind of showing, look, I do have some ideas of my own. He has been extremely aggressive on the base paths. And yes, are they running out of outs sometimes? Yes, they have done that. Do I want to see Danny Jansen stealing a base? Probably not. If I'm playing a Stratomatic game, I'm not sending Danny Jansen to steal a base. But the situation was right. They weren't holding them on. They sent him. Okay, he got thrown out. Ended up costing him a run. It was a spring training game. But he's making a point. We have a powerful lineup. We're going to score a lot of runs, but we're going to create a lot of runs, not just sit back and wait for the 3-run homer, not just, just batter your pitchers into submission. We're going to have smart at bats. We're going to try to bring up those pitch counts. We're going to be aggressive on the bases. Ball gets away from the catcher, as it happened in the Yankee series several times. Take that extra base. Grichuk did it. Jonathan Davis got thrown out trying to do it, but honestly, every time I saw the replay, I thought he was safe. But okay, but even so, Charlie is planting that seed in the minds of the opposing managers and the pitchers and the pitching coaches. Blue Jays aren't going to just play by the book. They're not going to just sit back and wait for their pitch and crush it. That will happen. That's going to happen naturally. But Charlie is being very, very aggressive. And I think that is terrific. We haven't seen that in baseball for far too long. Okay, and I know what analytics say. Oh, don't bunt. Don't give up an out. Oh, what was it? The line in Moneyball. I pay you to get on first. I don't pay you to get thrown out at second. That's all fine and well, and that is true. And I'm not saying that you do it in every situation, in every game, but you showed enough early. You don't have to do it again until June. If you're showing in the first couple of series of the year that you're willing and you have faith in your players, you're giving them a green light. And we talked about it on the podcast also last night with the Danny Jansen decision, leaving the bunt sign on. 2 points on that. Danny Jansen has had the most successful sacrifice bunts on the Blue Jays over the last 2 seasons. Or a season and a half, if you want to call 2020 half a season. He can handle the bat. He's not going to get a big hit with a runner on second and 2 outs. Probably not. He'll get you the occasional homer, but he can handle the bat. He can lay down a bunt. And as a catcher, he knows the optimum pitches to get that bunt down. And by looking out at the infield alignment, he's going to know, okay, well, I'm probably going to get a curveball on this count. So I'm going to show bunt, but I'll go to 2 strikes and I'm still going to try to put the bunt down. That shows a lot of guts, shows a lot of independence. And I'm pretty sure that's not in the scouting reports coming down from the front office. So Charlie, I'm very happy for you. Even if you're hung up on one side, you at least have the other side to make your seals, make your signs, and say, take that base, take the extra base. I'm pretty sure the base coaches have also been instructed, send them, because it has to be reinforced throughout the chain of command, not just coming, from Charlie himself. So that is a good sign. I still want Casey Candel to manage in 2022, but I think Charlie is positioning himself well for a job somewhere else once the Blue Jays stamp him in the back and toss him aside, Rich Renteria style, and bring in the manager that they really want to have there. Now it's time for that new segment we were talking about, this tweak in baseball. And this is not going to be a Blue Jay specific tweak. I think we've talked about the lineup enough, both here, on the podcast, on Twitter. So I didn't want to hammer that. This is more a general Major League Baseball common sense thing. So this tweak in baseball is, if you look, there's 30 teams. 13 of them played what would be considered either warm weather cities or in a dome. Okay, maybe even more than that. Play the opening weeks in your domes. In Milwaukee, in Houston, which have the retractable domes, Miami, Tampa, any of the Texas cities, even with the COVID chaos that's going on down there, Arizona, Los Angeles, San Diego, Anaheim, San Francisco, and Oakland. Well, why can't you play the opening couple of weeks every year in a situation that the game's going to be complete? I mean, is it really that mind-blowing to do that? Are you really putting a team at such a disadvantage if you're in a cold weather city that you're not going to open up at home for 2 weeks? If you know that in advance, aren't you adjusting to that already? If you know you're going to open the road trip in 2 weeks, turn it around and think about it this way. Okay, we're opening this season on the road. We're going to play our first 10, 12, 14 games on the road. But over the course of the rest of the season, when the weather is actually nice and our fans are going to want to come out to the ballpark, we're going to be able to have more home games. We're going to generate more of a gate because the weather's going to be nice. We don't have to worry about our best hitters, like out in Detroit with Miguel Cabrera, hitting a home run, but it was snowing so hard, he didn't think the ball went out of the park. He pulled up at second. They had to tell him, no, home run, Miggy. It's just stupid. Here in Pittsburgh, they say it's going to be 70 degrees for the home opener on Thursday. I will be shocked. I mean, usually it was 70 degrees right up until, that morning, and then monsoons came in, or hail or snow. Pittsburgh is a traditional bad home opener. Cincinnati, it was snowing at the home opener there. Let's start getting smart and play games in warm weather cities at the beginning of the year, so the disadvantage for the cold weather cities that they're experiencing being on the road for the first 2 weeks turns around later in the year with extended homestands when the weather is warm and the weather is nice. That I shouldn't have to be saying this, but I know that fans out there would agree with me, especially fans that go back to the early days of the Blue Jays and sat in Exhibition Stadium. And that was a place in April and early May that it was as cold as I've ever experienced. And I've been in Winnipeg in the middle of the winter. I've ice fished up by Hudson Bay. I've never been as cold other than sitting in the Buffalo Bills football stadium, which they built with an open end facing the lake for some stupid reason, in the literal capital of the snow belt. I've been colder there than I was in Exhibition Stadium, but let's just get smart. Okay. It is better for your players to play in warm weather because they're coming from warm weather, situations in Florida, in Arizona. Ease them into the cold. There's always going to be one or two teams are going to have to open. You can probably get away with it in Washington or Baltimore. I mean, it gets colder, but it really gets cold. Do you want to play in Detroit? Do you want to play in Minnesota? I mean, come on, let's get real. So that's this tweak in baseball. We'll come up with a more Toronto-centric one because I'm sure they'll do something that's going to annoy me over the course of the next week, and we can touch on that next week. The final segment of the On Fek Circle has been something called Blue Jays Way. And I'm trying to use this segment. It's a bit of nostalgia, a little bit of a history of the team, and addressing different challenges to being a Blue Jay fan. It's not easy to be a Blue Jay fan. It's different, obviously, in the NHL. I mean, it's different with soccer. It's different with professional lacrosse. It's even probably more different in basketball because basketball is an international sport. Baseball, it's 29 American-based teams and Toronto. So there's always challenges being a Blue Jay fan, and we'll touch on some of those, actually probably all of those bases with this little speak. I'm going to change hats real quick. I'm going to put on my Seattle Pilots hat because this week, actually it was last week in baseball history, a bankruptcy court officially dissolved the Pacific Northwest Baseball Club, which was the Seattle Pilots. Why is that important to Toronto fans? Stick with me, okay? Expansion was originally not supposed to happen in 1969. It was supposed to happen in 1971. But because baseball owners are inherently greedy and baseball commissioners are inherently short-sighted, Rob Manfred, they allowed Charlie Finley to move the Kansas City A's to Oakland for the 1968 season. That's bad enough, but the chairman of the Antitrust Committee in the U.S. Senate was a guy by the name of Stuart Symington. Stuart Symington was one of the most powerful U.S. senators of his time. He did not take losing baseball and Charlie Finley's antics very kindly. So he immediately threatened to come up and open up antitrust hearings if they didn't resolve the issue right now. So the planned expansion, which was going to be Seattle, potentially Buffalo, Montreal, San Diego, was now rushed ahead. And Seattle kind of got into the ball game late. And instead of playing in 1971, which would have allowed the Pilots to have, they would have had a dome stadium. The second dome stadium was going to be on the voters' ballots in 1969 in the fall. It would have passed had all the fiasco surrounding the Pilots not happened, and they would have had a dome stadium when they opened up their expansion team in 1971. That didn't happen. Bud Selig and his group bought the Pilots out of bankruptcy, moved them to Milwaukee. What followed? More lawsuits. So again, the short-sighted thing of maybe getting a little extra money out of Oakland is costing him now twice. So rather than expand as they originally had planned in the early 80s, they now had to rush an expansion to phase off the Seattle Pilots lawsuit, which they probably would have won. They would have won their lawsuit, and then what could have transpired would have been really messy. Do you move the team back out of Milwaukee? You really can't do that because then Milwaukee's going to sue you. So they said, okay. You have on your ballot and you've approved a new dome stadium that ended up being the Kingdome. So we'll expand to Seattle. Need to have another team in the American League. And they moved to Toronto and said, they had money, they had ownership, they had corporate sponsorship, obviously the major media market in Canada. Sorry, Les Québécois. I'm not trying to offend the Montreal Expos, but remember, you came within 10 days of the Montreal Expos being the Buffalo Bisons because you didn't have any money and nobody had paid the expansion fee yet at the end of 1968. So you almost had lost your franchise, had it revoked, and had it moved to Buffalo. So don't get your panties all twisted up, okay? I'm not insulting Les Québécois. It's just a fact of history. So you played in a municipal park rather than an actual stadium until the Olympic Stadium became available to you. But anyway, Toronto got an expansion team. In the initial round of talks for the 69 expansion, the bigger expansion, there really wasn't any civic interest in bringing baseball to Toronto. Minor league baseball had kind of failed, by the end of the late 50s. So there wasn't a big groundswell to bring baseball to Toronto. So they really weren't even considered. Now, put these two together. If Montreal had been moved to Buffalo, territorial rights would not have allowed the Blue Jays to expand into existence as being chosen for the 77 expansion. So if there was going to be baseball in Toronto and everything been worked out in a more logical sequence and they weren't trying to just scramble and avoid lawsuits, we wouldn't have had a Toronto Blue Jays as we know them now. It wouldn't have been our team. It wouldn't have been our expansion team. It would have been a team that eventually moved there. The Giants had been discussed moving to Toronto before Toronto became an expansion city. It would not have surprised me if Bill Fek moved the team to Toronto had there not been expansion already to Toronto, because he had to sell the White Sox because free agency was just bankrupting him. He didn't have the deep pockets. It wouldn't have surprised me if the White Sox had moved to Toronto, but it wouldn't have been the Blue Jays. You might have changed the team name to the Blue Jays, but it wouldn't have been our team. We would be taking on someone else's dead weight. And keep in mind, too, because of the problems in Montreal, and they didn't really get all the government support, not just within the province of Quebec, but on the national level as well, that they had anticipated or had been promised. There might not have been baseball, period, in Canada until a team moved in. So when you think of the Seattle Pilots, you pick up the ball 4, or you see a hat like this, buy it. Pick it up and say, thank you, Seattle Pilots. Because if you hadn't been so incredibly mismanaged and just not prepared for a Major League Baseball in 1969, there might not have been a Toronto Blue Jays. And then we wouldn't have a Blue Jays way now. We'd have a White Sox way, or a Giants way, or a Tampa Bay way. Who knows? Almost out of time. I want to thank you for tuning in to episode 11 of the On Fek Circle. Don't forget, the main podcast, new time, new day, Mondays, 6 p.m. Eastern time. It's available on Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Apple, you name the podcast provider, they should have the Jays from the Couch radio podcast. And coming up on Thursday, an hour early, just like this show, Sunny Side of the Dome, Karen Suter. It is a much watch, much listen. If you're a Blue Jay fan, you need to tune in to Karen's shows. I'm Steve Fek, the Feckless Wonder. We'll see you again next Tuesday. If you didn't catch the live stream, please do share the feed from our Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and from @JaysFromCouch on Twitter. Go Jays.